entertainmentbuddha.com.
Hey there, geeks, gamers, and nonconformists. This is Matt Haywood from entertainmentbuddha.com bringing you the recap and review of the latest episode of The Walking Dead, which was titled Remember. Alright, so Remember aired last night on The Walking Dead. If you're not watching it on AMC, you're missing one of the best shows to hit cable over the past couple of years. I mean, it's up there with Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul has already rocketed itself up into that pantheon. But anyways, so what happened in Remember? First off, let's get to the recap part of this recap and review. Alright, so the action picks up right where it left off at the end of last week's episode. Rick and his group are sitting outside the gates of Alexandria, this magical walled-in place that really hasn't been touched by any walkers since the outbreak. So Rick is still naturally a little hesitant when they walk in. The people are looking at him funny, like, ew, look. I mean, obviously Rick and his group, they look like a bunch of homeless people because they've been living out in the wild for a couple weeks now, months if that. Really, ever since the prison got taken down by the governor in season 4. So they look like vagabonds, and all these people in Alexandria, they're nice. It looks like a town that's been untouched, like I said. So they look at Rick and his group, and they're like, "You guys stink." So, anyways, they roll in. Rick obviously is Rick. They try to take their guns, and Rick's like, "What? You're not getting our guns, son." So one of the guys, Aaron, at least, remember the person that brought Rick and the company to Alexandria, is like, "All right, chill, dude. Go see Deanna. She's our leader. She'll talk to you." So Rick heads off to this Deanna Monroe's house. Apparently she was a congresswoman before the outbreak, and as the outbreak was happening, she was en route home, and the government shuffled her off to this little community, which I guess was for people they're almost like doomsday type of people. So this community is self-sufficient completely with water, electricity, you name it. $800,000 a home type of community. So anyways, Deanna ends up here. Great place to survive in a zombie apocalypse. So her and her husband, her family, they put up the walls, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, Deanna's talking to Rick. She wants to film him, which I thought was kind of odd. She actually films many of Rick's group as she talks to them. She says they're all about transparency or something like that. So anyways, while she's talking to Rick, she kind of lets into why they want Rick and his group there. She's like, "Listen, we've been watching you people. We know what you can do. We need people like you that have lived outside in this awful zombie apocalypse and survived and didn't kill their own kind. We need you to kind of toughen up the citizens of Alexandria. I mean, they're a bunch of pussies, all right? They don't know what to do." And that's showcased later on in the episode, especially with Deanna's son, Aiden, who has a very interesting run-in with Glenn, but more on that later. So anyways, Rick sits down, explains about the group. He's like, "Listen, you shouldn't trust me. I've killed tons of people to keep my family safe." She likes that, even though Rick's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm a little nuts. I can get a little crazy sometimes." She's like, "Hey, that's cool. We need a little bit of that nuttiness in this camp to make men out of the boys, if you will, and to toughen up the women." So anyways, after they talk, Rick is shown his 2 new houses. So in Alexandria, the community, they're already gifting Rick and his company 2 new houses, big ones in fact. Rick has a long overdue shower, and he shaves his beard. No! How do you shave your beard? Anyway, so Rick is back to looking like Rick from season 1. No more beard. Hair gets cut. He's a new man. You can tell he extremely enjoyed the bath. But he's still a little uneasy. Him and Carl talk about, and Carol, like, "Hey, they put us in 2 houses. They've taken our guns. They're trying to do something to us. Let's all stay in the same house together." So they all stay in the same house, which Deanna comes upon, and she's like, "Oh, hey, look, you guys, that's why we like you. You guys stick together. You're a family. You're here to protect each other." She also lets them know that they are going to be assigned jobs in Alexandria if they want to stick around. Everyone has a job to do, although she doesn't really tell anyone what their job is at the moment, especially not Rick and Michonne, who she seems to have taken a liking to. So anyways, other survivors or other of Rick's groups, they go and talk to Deanna. Carl talks to her very nonchalantly, says, yeah, I killed my mom. I had to stab her in the head because that's what we had to do. Daryl is easily the most uneasy while talking to Deanna. He's sitting there holding an opossum that he shot as they entered Alexandria in a great scene. This was at the very beginning. So they're sitting outside the gate and they hear some noise and everyone's like, oh, what's going on here? And Daryl just goes, hiya, and blasts an opossum, holds it up and says, hey, we brought dinner. Love that line. So anyways, Daryl's not feeling this community whatsoever. He's not showering, nothing. He looks like still dirty old Daryl with his angel wings vest. So he's not feeling it, although the others are starting to come around to the idea. You know, Carl meets up with some of the kids there. They all hang out. They want to play video games, which Carl's like, oh, okay, cool, let's hang out. So things, I mean, there is some normalcy going on, even though Rick and his group don't really fully buy into it yet. Some are coming around to the idea, but not all of them, especially not Daryl. And Carol, I believe, just how bubbly she was acting in her interview with Deanna and her job as a cook for old people or people that have kids. You can tell she's putting on that act to kind of help bring the Alexandria people's guard down in respect to her. You know, they think she's just some nice older lady, but we all know who Carol really is. Carol can kick ass. All right, so all this is going on. Everyone's getting their roles assigned, and eventually Glenn, Maggie, I believe Tara's with them. They run into Aiden, who is Deanna's son, and he's the leader of going out on runs or whatever, but we soon find that he's actually an asshole. So anyways, he takes Glenn and Maggie out on a run to test them to see if they can handle themselves on a run outside of the safety of the walls, which we all know is a freaking joke. We know Glenn, Maggie, Tara, anyone in Rick's groups can handle themselves out in the wild, where these guys, Aiden and his buddies, they're a bunch of noobs. So much so that they've chained up a walker that killed one of their friends so they could take pot shots at it every time they go out to make themselves feel better. All right, it gets away. They start whistling for it, and Glenn and them are like, what the f*** are you doing, people? Why are you whistling, making noises, trying to call the attention of walkers to us? That's how we get eaten. All right, so as Tara's ripping the skin off of this walker, Glenn comes up and he's like, shika-pa! And Aiden's like, hey man, why'd you kill that? That's not cool, I'm the boss. And Glenn's like, whatever, dude, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. One thing leads to another. Aiden tries to fight Glenn. Glenn's like, slams him on the ground. Fight over. Glenn made his point. Deanna's actually glad that her son got his ass kicked and that someone put him in his place. So Rick and his group have made their presence known in Alexandria by the end. Rick is assigned the role of the constable, same with Michonne. So they're going to be these two brand new people in the community, which is kind of fishy, are going to be the security leaders. So we know that'll obviously cause some friction as things march on. The curious thing about the end, so Rick's all done up, shaved, haircut. He's got a security outfit on. Daryl's still not feeling it, and they're like, yo, dude. And Carol's like, we can't stay here. It's going to make us weak. And Rick's like, listen, we're not going to become weak. We'll never become weak again. And quite frankly, if these people don't make this work, we'll make this work. Essentially implying that if Deanna and her citizens of Alexandria don't fall in line to the way Rick wants things to go, they're just going to take the damn city for themselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Rick Grimes is one badass mother effer. All right, so review-wise, real quick, I liked the episode. It was a bit slow. I mean, it was kind of nice to see. I like seeing the videos. They kind of were like flashbacks that played as the characters were going through their transformation in Alexandria. But in general, it wasn't one of those episodes where you're like, oh, what? No crazy moments. The end was great. Just when you think Rick is kind of assimilating and becoming a yes ma'am type of guy, he lets everyone know, like, listen, hey, I've got this under control. If these people don't want to behave the way we want them to behave, we will make them behave the way we want them to behave. So you gotta love Rick, even though he had his rebirth and shaved his beard off and cut his hair. He's still Rick. He still knows what to do to get the job done and keep his friends and family safe. Not really a ton of gore. I mean, you had that one interaction with the zombie that Aiden likes to chain up and kind of poke like a dog, or a beehive, if you will. But outside of that, not a ton of killing. There was the opossum killing that Daryl did early on, but not a whole lot of gore in the Walker department, which is kind of a bummer. I always like when there's some good brain smatterings or a decapitation, something like that. But in general, I did like the story, and I liked how it kind of progressed Rick's group, and now they're in Alexandria, and where do we go from here? You know, they've been given positions of power. Will they abuse it? Is Alexandria really what it's cracked up to be? I mean, there's still, I don't really believe that it's exactly what, as Deanna explains it. There's something going on here. So we'll find out with the remaining few episodes left this season. If I had to rate this episode, I'd probably give it, similar to last week, we're going to go with an 80 out of 100 for Remember, the most recent episode of The Walking Dead on AMC. As usual, everyone, this is Matt Haywood doing your The Walking Dead recap and review, complete with stick figure drawings this Monday afternoon for entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek one post at a time. We'll see you next Monday. Until then, happy zombie killing.
entertainmentbuddha.com